one particular council meeting doesn't open with a prayer anymore because it might offend. Well, if the person who went to die on the cross to see if each and every one of us offends somebody, well, I'm sorry about that, but I wouldn't be too bothered. And the people in that particular council that actually stand by and allow that to happen and label it democracy, well, that's an absolute scandal. And here now, also in this country, we're at a stage where they're talking about taking ministers to court who won't marry gay couples. So the law of the land is likely in the next couple of years going to come down in favour of people who disobey God's law. Well, how shameful is that? So all these things played a major part in me deciding that I really wanted to follow God and wanted God to guide me. And indeed God began to guide me in my politics. I was involved in the setting up of a political party to stand in the local elections. And God, I felt, was in that. Stood in the local elections, done okay for a guy my age. Well, probably done better than most first-time candidates who aren't part of the big parties such as the DUP and Ulster Loyalist. And I enjoyed the experience. I learned a lot from the experience. Following that, I became pretty disillusioned with politics, because I felt that anything that supported the current political systems in this country was not of God and was totally wrong. And I've always been a great believer in the Bible verse, I'd rather obey God's law than the law of man. And some of the laws that man are making at this particular time and hanging it under the flag of democracy is an absolute scandal. But that's another story. We'll talk about that another time. But anyway, after politics, I still continued on with community work. At that particular time, things were going well with my fiancée. Would become engaged in Barcelona. January, a couple of years before that anyway. Shows how important the date was to me. Am I joking? But things started to get a bit shaky there. And I played to God certain things. And the ending of that was in late August last year. Me and my partner split up, and that was a very difficult time in my life, and a time when to be honest, I thought, why are you, God? You know, why have you done this to me? You know, and it took me a long time of serious heartache before, you know, I was angry with God. You know, I was totally angry with God, didn't know where I was, knocked for six, whole life turned upside down, and I actually, at times, was shouting at God, I was, why have you done this to me? But after a while, God showed me why He had done it. God showed me what had led to that happening. And God had taught me some big lessons out of that. Yeah, I'm not going to go into talking about what that was because that's between me and God. But the hatred that at the start I felt for the person that I loved after split up was terrible. But after God showed me some things, which again is between me and God, Um, one night I played to God and the hatred just left me like that. Just left me. And God filled me with a peace and a joy that, you know, you couldn't describe. So peaceful, so joyful, and all that hatred and bad feelings just left me. And I was glad that they left me, because for so long I was angry and I was frustrated and had all them feelings about why did God do that to me. But God works in mysterious ways. He doesn't always do things the way you think they should be done. And I came to a point of, who am I to question God? You know, I'm, the height of my wisdom is sheer foolishness in God's eyes. So I'm no man to question God or the decision He makes. So in that period, I totally began seeking God again. And at the same time, while all that was going on, still heavily involved in loyalism. Heavily involved. And as a matter of fact, loyalism really took over and was my main, it could really, and that was one of the positive things, if you could say that. I'm not, well, no, positive's maybe not the right word, because at the time there was absolutely nothing positive in my eyes after splitting up with my fiancée. But one of the things that allowed me to do more was totally focus on loyalism. But it came to a point that I realised that for the past year and a half in my relationship, my focus was on Ulster and loyalism, God a wee bit, and third, my partner. And and God showed me that, I was out every night of the week, running about all over the place, and it was all about me and all about Ulster, and at times God was in it, and at times God wasn't. But in the time that I became on my own, I really did have time to focus on loyalism, and I really put my heart and soul into that. And I was playing at the same time as I was angry with God. I wanted Him to lead me in that, but it led to a time of confusion for me, and I was confused. But I then began doing some work with a loyalist from similar background to myself, who is a fantastic evangelist now. Goes all over telling his story. And I began to do some work with him and to really seek God in my heart. And I found that in that time God totally saved me. Totally saved me. And God works in strange ways. After I split up with my fiancée, to be honest, I thought the cure was just find another girl, and which I would have advised it's not, but that's what I believed at the time. And she'll probably kill me for saying this, but there was a young girl, but see me to myself, who was a Christian, who invited me to go to a church with her, and I have to be totally honest, the only interest I had in going to that church with her was because I thought she was a good looking girl. But that set off a change of events that, in the end, changed my life and brought me closer to God, because God really spoke to me through some of them church meetings. God led me to where I am today. I don't know what God wants me to do, and funny enough, I questioned God as to why have you not laid down a master plan in front of me, and He answered me, and He showed me, when Moses brought the Israelites out of Egypt, they didn't know where they were going, They didn't know what they're going to eat the next day. They didn't know what they're going to drink the next day. They didn't know where they would live. They had to trust God each and every day to provide for them. And that's what I'm at the minute. Each and every day I trust God. And God is the one who ultimately will guide my work and where I go. And if I believe that God is not in something, I will not go along with it because everybody else is going along with it. Such as the current state of loyalism, which I will talk about in the future, but God is not in that. God is not in selling your culture and selling your country for money. That's not of God. You know, what so shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? And a lot of people are losing their soul for the sake of money, for the sake of a quick buck. And I want to emphasise that God's there for anybody that wants him. God will lead you as an individual, and God will lead our people if we put faith in him. But it can't be one foot in, one foot out. It has to be all for God. You have to be totally devoted to God, because if you're not, you know, it's never going to work. You know, and a fantastic story I heard a pastor tell, and it was a fantastic story. It was about Jesus told the disciples, get in the boat, we're going to the other side. And the point it was emphasised was, when Jesus says you're going to the other side, you're going. Nothing's stopping you. Nothing is stopping you going to the other side. But out in the middle of the lake, when they were going across, the waves got up and the boat started to fill up with water, but at the same time Jesus was happily sleeping away in the back. And the disciples eventually decided to wake Jesus up in a panic. Jesus, Jesus, do you not care? And Jesus simply stood up, calmed the waves, and asked them, have you no faith at all? And that shows that no matter how tough times in life get, when Jesus is in the boat, you're still going to hit the waves, you're still going to hit the winds, water still is going to be coming up around you, you're going to still have the most difficult times in life. But when Jesus is in the boat, he can calm the waves, and you are going to the other side. You will not sink, and that's a promise of God. And all things in your life, when you put your trust in God, will work together for good. Jeremiah 29:11. God has plans for good, not destruction, for those who trust him. But you've got to put your trust in God. The Protestant people have got to put their trust back in God. You know, all I hear is, you've no other solutions to the current situation. Well, no, I don't. And no, there is no master plan. Just the same way as in Egypt, there was no master plan. There was no grand solution. But the Israelites put their faith in God, and he took them to a land far greater than they could ever have imagined in their time in slavery. But that's where I'm at this particular point in time. Thank you for taking the time for watching or whatever, and I just want to encourage everybody to take time to look at your own personal relationship with God, and that's picking up your Bible yourself. And just one thing I actually almost forgot to say, I said to start the story about going to the drop-in centre, the Youth for Christ in Donegal was younger. Well, when I was 10, we presented with this Bible, youth Bible. Absolutely no interest in it. I don't think it ever looked at it.